How to help a child who is scared of the dark. That's a common problem, and it often crops up when they're a bit more able to communicate, have a few more ideas going on, and in the preschooler stage, sometimes the toddler stage, you start to see that emerging, or even the early school years. Yes, they could be scared of the dark before that, but it's going to be less likely they can let you know. So I think it's always important to not assume that they are and think, my child must be scared of the dark, because maybe they're not. So it tends to show up later toddlers, preschoolers, early school years. I'm going to give you 4 tips about this today, 4 things that you can consider to help with a child that is scared of the dark. Number 1, discuss it with your child. Talk about it, let them express how they're feeling, because if you just dismiss it, so discuss, don't dismiss, because if you dismiss it, or don't be silly, or that's any way in making out that it's nonsense, you're not validating your child's feelings. And even if you think they're just trying it on, even if you don't think it's a genuine fear, don't dismiss it. They'll just play on it more because they'll make you want to listen, or they'll act in a way that gets your attention about that. So actually listen, ask them, what is it that you're afraid of? You'll probably get the answer, the dark. But try and pull out, don't give them ideas, don't suggest things, don't say, is it the, that shadow over there, or is it the, please don't give them ideas, but just try and draw out and say, well, what is it? Is there something you can see? Or, almost look at like, well, you can't see it. But try and get them to explain more specifically what it is they're afraid of. If they really can't, then there's probably not so much to it, and it probably just is a fear of not being able to see around the room and that kind of thing. So discuss it, reassure them, but don't dismiss the concept of being scared. Don't tell them they're silly. It's okay, it's a valid feeling. Number 2 is to reassure. Let them know that whilst you understand that, everything's okay. And even you can play a few games with the light and dark and go, look, the light's on and the room looks like this. The light's off and look, everything's the same. And just do little, make a real positive, calm game out of it almost, and show them and demonstrate and show how nothing changes. It's just darker, but nothing else has changed. So lots of reassurance, understanding, empathy there as well. Now, if you feel like you do need some light in the room, and actually just a little bit of light, because different rooms are different darknesses, and I always say to try and have the room on an 8 out of 10, or anything from an 8 upwards. If 10 was pitch black, couldn't see a hand in front of your face, then you really want to be going no lighter than a 7 to 8. Otherwise it's going to be too light, and that's not conducive to sleep. And I always say black out all the natural light, because natural light messes with our circadian rhythm. So in terms of artificial light, make sure you're around a 7 or 8 minimum out of 10 darkness. But if you do need some light in the room, and if your child is genuinely scared but just a little bit of light does make them feel better, then you need a suitable light option, and those will be a red or an amber coloured light. They don't mess up your night vision, and they also don't mess with your retinas and your receptors that end up triggering wake-up hormones and all kinds of other stuff that goes on in our systems. Without going into the science, to avoid that stuff happening, stick with the red or the amber coloured lights, and nice and dim. I'm yet to find the perfect light. I'd like to invent the perfect light, but I have found various bulbs, and if you put it in the right kind of lamp, you can get it dull enough and red, and it's enough of a glow that you can see. It's like having night vision, and you can see around the room, but it's not lighting everything up, and it doesn't mess with sleep at all. So you can sleep with that kind of thing all night long. Make sure it is nice and dim. So having a suitable light option, it might be that actually they don't need to see and have a light on all night, but they just need something they can pick up and have a look around and then put their light back down, and those kind of things exist as well. But again, try and go for the red or amber, because there's so many fancy lights that are all kinds of lovely colours, but that's just going to mess with their sleep. So keep it red or amber. Third thing I want to give you is whatever you set up for your child around sleep. So if you say you can have this light torch thing, you can have this particular light on, whatever you decide and whatever the rule is, stick to it. Have a limit. Don't just have some kind of unlimited, okay, you can have this, all right, now tonight it's this, and oh, before you know it, there's a light show going on. So have a limit to what you allow, and don't overindulge, you know. If you think, no, look, I've given you this, and I know that's enough to you know, distinguish some of that fear, and you've responded and you've acknowledged the situation, don't overcompensate, because they won't stop. You give them a red light and then they say, can I have this light? Can I have that light? No, this is what we have. It's okay, you can see everything, and stick to it. And my fourth and important point on this topic is don't put your fears onto your child. So maybe you have a fear of the dark. Maybe you feel a little uncomfortable when you can't see. Maybe you do that thing where you're walking up the stairs in darkness and you just start freaking yourself out and feel the need to run. Kids do the same. They do, they'll come out of their room and they'll leg it to your room because they're scared. I'm sure loads of people have had that, and you hear this boom, 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 where they're just, desperate to get to where you are without being in the dark on their own. So don't put your fears. If you have any fears or concerns about the dark, or you feel a little uncomfortable in the dark, don't just assume your child does too. So many people say to me, oh yeah, my 9-month-old's really scared of the dark, so I've put a light in it. How do you know your 9-month-old is scared of the dark? They probably aren't. And if you're so concerned that they might be, or because you are, that you're putting a light in there, then they will be. So when you do decide the light is causing a problem, you need to take it away, they're not going to like it. So if you can go with the darkness for sleep right from the beginning, you're more likely to avoid fears of the dark. They crop up here and there, and sometimes people go, yeah, have these pretty stars on your ceiling, or have this other thing, and that's okay. Don't have flashing light shows, changing colours and things that are making them look and watch, because that's not conducive to sleep. One steady light, red or amber, is fine. But yeah, don't put your fears onto your child. I hope that helps and gives you 4 really good things to think about and that you can address when trying to help a child who's scared of the dark.